What's happening this weekend? If you ask yourself that question, stay tuned, because today we are going to build an AI agent that is able to answer exactly that question for your city. And in this demo, I'm going to show you how you can build an AI agent, including a frontend, as well as an MCP server, built in just a few minutes, connected to any APIs like the OpenWeatherAPI and the events for your city. Let's start building. For that, we're going to have 4 steps. First of all, we're going to take a look at the architecture of our application. Secondly, I'm going to show you how you can build your MCP server, and then how you can integrate it directly in your frontend. Today, we're going to use Lovable to build that. And then afterwards, you can directly jump in and test, and you have an awesome AI agent that will always answer the correct and up-to-date questions about events in your city. Let's start with the architecture. Well, first of all, we need a user interface. We are going to build that today using Lovable. Maybe you've already have heard of them. It's quite amazing. You can build really good-looking frontends with just a few prompts. So it's going to have an input prompt that users can ask questions in like a chat-based UI. Apart from that, we're going to use OpenAI as our LLM model. We're going to use the OpenAI SDK, which includes support for MCP client. I'm going to come back to that later, how that works and what that is. And then we have MCP server built with MCP-Builder.ai. We're going to need 2 tools basically for our chatbot. We want to give it the opportunity to check for the weather on a certain day, to really give good event suggestions like outdoor if it's nice weather or indoor if not. And then we have, of course, the endpoint to getting the current events for a certain time span from our city. And the MCP server is the place which will in the background then call 2 APIs. Today it's the OpenWeatherAPI as well as the event XML feed from our city of Linz today. All right, I think we can start building. Let's jump in. So head over to MCP-Builder.ai and you can directly start building. So what we're going to start first is we just describe on what we want to build today. Let's build an AI agent that helps our users finding the perfect event by checking the weather and the date. For that, we're gonna need 2 endpoints, basically the tools in our MCP server. First, of course, get the weather with input parameter the date. The date from OpenAPI API is going to be an Unix date, so we're also going to add that information here. Timestamp in seconds. It would also be suitable that you just add in the next step the documentation to the API and just add the information that we're going to need that. And secondly, we're going to need an endpoint to get the events filtered by mandatory, start, date, and end date. So that should already be suitable. We want to build an AI agent. We have 2 tools that we need, a get weather and the get events, with 2 parameters here, 1 here. Looks good. Let's continue. So we already have that. Next step is the data sources we want to add. I have already prepared the 2 API calls we need today, one to the OpenWeatherAPI and the other one to the XML event feed from the city of Linz. So we're going to head over to API. I have prepared the curls right here. We're just going to describe how it looks like. Use this API to get the weather for Linz on a certain day. So I'm just going to copy the curl. Perfect. We also want to add the response, at least an example, so it just knows what it comes back here. Head back again. So we can just copy that thing here. Good. Secondly, okay, Commando Retour. Start the response. Secondly, let's use this event API to get, we don't need to explain anymore. Again, I have another curl right here. It's an XML feed. So we're just going to add We don't even need the curl in this place. We can just add the URL right here. Use this event API XML feed. This is the URL. And here is a response example. So we're just gonna, let's, I don't know, do one first and second maybe. Just a few examples that it knows the structure of the XML. That should be enough. And let's also add the response for the weather API, which we forgot earlier. Because in the curl there's of course not the information how the response looks like. So I think we're ready to go. Let's continue next. So now MCP-Builder will analyze your input, your requirements, as well as your data source that we want to build and come up with the first proposal of the MCP server. We can then take another look if actually this is everything that we need and that it works correctly. And then in the third step, directly download it and run it on our cloud environment. So we have fast forwarded a little bit. The generation is completed now. As you can see, we have two tools which generated like we wanted it to have. We have the get events list for a specific date range, as well as the get weather call. On the right side, we can always see the input parameter as well as the description. This is more going into the details now. You actually don't have to check that, but just to give you a bit of background information. For example, each tool has a description here. This is basically for the context of the LLM to know when it should call that tool. In this case, getting the weather data for a specific date, it knows, oh, I have to call that tool. Quite nice. We have a date here. And then we also have our events, which we have similar. We have a start and an end time, both of them mandatory. And then we have the fulfillment steps, like I said, going a bit in detail right here. But you can see, for example, the call that is done under the hood. Well, apart from that, it looks pretty nice. Before we now run it, let's have a quick look at the testing section. We can head over to our test. Let's remove. Then add our input parameter, starting with the end date, which is null 024. And I want to filter from 23. Let's hit start. I'm going to head to next, and now we should actually see some results. It seems like it's downloading it yet. We have our XML file here. Apparently there's a tennis junior tour this week. Right here, looks pretty nice in Linz. Then we can continue to see the results. So overall, it looks like the MCP server is done. We don't even have to adjust anything anymore. We're just going to head over to the run section now. Today I'm going to use on-premise. You can choose between local and on-premise. What we want to have today is a containerized MCP server, so we can run it on our server directly, or you could directly put it onto your cloud. So I'm going to head to on-premise. Here's a warning that authentication is not enabled today, but that doesn't matter because we have public endpoints here. We have the events. There's no need for any authentication. So let's head over to download. So when you download the file, you will see that you have a fully running Docker Compose setup, including some README explanations, the specifications, as well as your BAT and SH. So what you can do next, and what I will do now, is I will just run it on our servers and deploy it, and then have a URL that is ready to run and that we can put into our frontend into the MCP clients part. So after deploying our MCP server into the cloud, we are heading over now to Lovable. I can show you how I built the front end. On the right side, you see some preview. As you can see, it's quite a simple, but still pretty good looking kind of chat input for the user. I'm already greeted here. I'm the Linz events expert ready to help. Apart from that, we have quite a simple page. If you want to know how to build it, it was actually just one big, quite easy prompt. I will link all the information, like the resources, everything below the video, so you can also test it and check it out yourself. So I just started with build a page that helps users to find the best events in a certain day in Linz. It features an AI chat using OpenAI. The website contains modern and cool design, a few other things. Then we have some technical details that's quite important. We told it to use the OpenAI SDK because otherwise it would just call the APIs maybe, and the OpenAI SDK already has support for MCP clients, which we need in order to add our server URL to our MCP server. That's what we saw earlier in our architecture. This is the place where we put our MCP URL in there. I have already done that. Right here. And apart from that, we have only the system prompt left, basically saying you're an expert for events in the city of Linz. The first question to the user is always which day, which it already did right here. If the date is not too far away, it checks for the weather. Use an MCP tool for that. So I explicitly tell it there's an MCP tool ready for you, although it would know that by itself also. And then afterwards get the event for that day, again using an MCP tool for that. Then I had some minor changes about the OpenAI, but overall it was really just one prompt leading us here. So I think we are ready to test. So it's asking which day do you want to explore. I will come by the 24th of July. Let's see what it comes up with. So now it should first of all check the weather, like we prompted in our system prompt. For that, it uses the MCP-Server that we just built, asking the OpenAI API, and it should tell us now the weather in 2 days, and that eventually will help it to suggest some events, I guess. So it's about 23 degrees with only a few clouds. Looks quite nice for outdoor. That's a great suggestion. A mild day, perfect for outdoor. What events are you interested in? Yeah, well, how about outdoor walking around the city? Let's see if it comes up with something, since it's quite a nice day for walking. So now it's calling the MCP tool for getting events, also the one that we just built. And let's see what it finds on the certain day, on the 24th of July. Great match for outdoor walking in Linz on the 24th. There's an interaktiver Spaziergang zu Anton Bruckner. It's a free interactive city walk where you can explore multiple locations related to the famous composer Anton Bruckner. That sounds really nice. Perfect for the weather. So it seems like it really worked quite well. So I hope this gives you some cool insights, what amazing stuff you can build using the Model Context Protocol, how easy it is you build your own MCP server on MCP-Builder.ai to connect any data to your AI agent and then afterwards directly expose it to a nice frontend to your users. I hope to see you soon on our platform and start building.